Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth questions about the town and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now it's Mayor Bob Hedlund.
Welcome to Ask the Mayor in Weymouth, and I am Kathleen Smith. I am your new interim superintendent in Weymouth, and I'm also your guest citizen advocate inquisitor mayor.
Yes, right.
I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we thought what better way to introduce you to the community than co-host the top-rated show here on the South Shore.
Well, I've seen you've had some really impressive guest speakers, so I'm going to do my very best.
We haven't had that many, and how many? We're up to almost 100 shows, right? And we've had Dana Hersey, who was part of the inspiration for the show, from the old Ask the Manager on TV 38, WSBK days. We've had just Tim Kelly in our previous show, senior meteorologist for NECN. And then we've had Mary Heinrichs. We had Mayor Sullivan.
I know Mayor Sullivan.
We had my son. Oh, and we had me.
That's great. Asking yourself the questions.
We had someone that didn't show up, and I had to ask myself questions, yes.
Well, I am just honored to be here. I have to tell you, this is a first for me, Mayor, so I'm honored.
You have been on the job now for exactly how long? When was your official start date?
My official start date was January 11th. I was able to have some transition time, and I think it's amazing that having been in a district, Brockton, for 42 years, ending up as the superintendent, that I'm starting to feel at home. I'm starting to feel comfortable. I know names. I truly want to thank you because you and I have had opportunities to have, meetings. And
we had a great meeting yesterday. Should I tell folks about it? We had a guy that was in this room meeting with me, and he wouldn't leave. And he stayed for our meeting for like an hour, and it went off the rails. The other guy was a bit of a baseball historian, and we learned that our new interim superintendent is a baseball historian, and not a lot of educational subject matter got discussed. It was compressed in at the last 5 minutes of the meeting, and a lot of baseball talk occurred. It culminated in a challenge because we found that she kept a diary. Can I tell this story? She kept a diary, I'm going to tell it anyway, of the 1967 Red Sox season as a young girl.
12 years old.
And would write down what happened that day in that game, and you got to find that.
Well, I called my 85-year-old mother last night because I did tell her, Mayor, that you beat me in the challenge. But you have to know, I think the mayor was surprised that I almost met the challenge. So we started out, can I just tell quickly?
Yes.
So we started out, talking baseball, and my dad played years ago. My dad's been gone, but in minor league system, back in the 50s. And I was a daughter with no sons, so I had to truly understand baseball. So I loved when we were talking to this gentleman, and the 67 Red Sox came up right in my wheelhouse. And the mayor said to me, okay, 67, 67, who were the 4 catchers that during the season? And I got 3 of them. That's pretty impressive.
And that's kind of a trick question because the first guy was let go like the first week of the season, I think, or early on.
I knew the name though when you said the one I didn't get.
Bob Tillman.
Bob Tillman, and then he asked me who started pitching in the first game of the 67
Can I
World
interrupt
Series.
you, please?
Yes.
You started with the questions.
I did.
And you have to tell that part of the story.
That's true. He is right about that. I told him I was very embarrassed because this was my love, as he said. I wrote a diary as a 12-year-old girl, and most girls are writing about other things. And I started to write every night when there was a game. I would have my little transistor radio because they always weren't on TV back then. And I would tell you who the pitcher was, who got home runs, what happened. And truly, it was like I was part of the team. It was something that I did that for a number of years. So I said to the mayor, I was totally embarrassed when Steve Buckley, a baseball writer and author.
She wanted to hit me up with a tough question.
Well, I told him that I had met Steve Buckley when he spoke to superintendents
Forget Buckley,
at an
just
event.
tell the part about the question.
Well, I said he asked a question, and in front of all these superintendents, I couldn't get the right answer. And the question was who started second base. But before I could even get the question out, who started second base in 67, the mayor says to me, answers Reggie Smith.
She goes, I have a question for you, and I go, Reggie Smith.
So it really did surprise me. I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. So I was embarrassed because deep down.
So then
I knew that
we
answer.
took the challenge to another level. Who could name the most members of the 67 roster? And I think I got to about 25 or 6, and you had like 20.
19. No, 19.
So the other gentleman that was in the room texted me later that night. He says, "Did you get Ken Brett? Did you get Sparky Lyle?"
Oh,
I had Ken Brett. I forgot Sparky Lyle.
I did too.
And he said, "Was Gary Peters on that team?"
I don't even
He was
remember
not. He came in '68.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't even
Right.
remember that name.
Anyway,
So that was our fun yesterday, and then we proceeded to talk about schools.
if this banter continues, we're going to set the new record for a low in number of questions answered. So we'll see if we can
I better
catch
get to
up.
work. Okay.
This is
I'll
great.
get
We'll
to
have to
work.
do another segment just on baseball.
Sounds good, Mayor. I'm in. So, good afternoon, Mayor Hedlund. When and is there any intention of installing a stop line for those cars coming up Hollis Street, approaching the stop sign at the corner of intersecting Randolph Street? Question mark. I have witnessed numerous vehicles that roll through that stop sign. Vehicles wanting to make a left-hand turn onto Hollis from Randolph are met with glaring eyes from those that do not heed that stop sign. A stop line defining where those vehicles on Hollis need to stop before the approaching Randolph Street travel lane would be a great help for those on Randolph Street who wish to turn left onto Hollis. Those of us who grew up in the area remember when there was an island in that intersection with a mailbox. I understand why that island and mailbox were removed. However, a stop line would help define where vehicles need to stop prior to traveling forward onto
I'm
Randolph.
looking at a nodding head over here behind the camera who's evidently in total agreement with this. Can I just see that for a minute?
Sure, and it's from Tom.
So this is a South Weymouth related question? South Weymouth? Well, we don't do those. We only do North Weymouth, right? So he just wants to stop line by the stop sign, right? Is it a problem? You were nodding a minute ago.
Yeah.
A stop line, that's easy, sure. Okay, next question.
Okay, so it doesn't have to go to a
I
commission?
no, I mean, next time I'm up there, I'll look. I think I know what he's talking about. It's not an intersection that I'm regularly traversing, but if that's all, and with the motion being seconded from Jeff behind the camera, I guess that is something that makes sense, and we will address it.
Yeah, and you're a busy city, so getting used to your roads and being comfortable, moving from place to place, those kind of things actually help. You've got a lot of visitors that come into the city and a lot of traffic. I think that's great.
And I'll say that if it isn't done immediately, it would be added to the list as part of the regular striping maintenance program that we do. So it might not be right away, but it would be the next time that neighborhood is being striped.
Sounds good. So, Mayor, your second question. Is there any way even a temporary school zone speed limit sign can be put up on North Street by the entrance to the municipal parking lot that is used as the drop-off for Wessagusset School? So this is interesting to me. As you turn from Regatta onto North Street, there is a speed sign indicating 30 miles per hour. Anyone just driving by or delivery people don't have a clue that this lot is being used by the school for drop-off during hybrid model. Thank you, D. O'Sullivan.
That's another great question. Mary, that's your neighborhood. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
Excellent. So
I
we get
agree that on North Street, you don't realize that the municipal lot is being used for child drop-off.
our traffic engineer is going to love this show. We'll get on that one too. That one I can't give an answer till I get feedback from the traffic engineer. But we'll look into that one. And by the way, I talk about concerns about bureaucracy in certain departments here in town.
Okay, Mayor?
We get by without a highway superintendent. We don't really have a full-time highway superintendent. We rely on our traffic engineer for a lot of questions like this, who works very hard.
I'm amazed at the number of jobs people do in this community, including members of my department. They're juggling a lot. So, dear Mayor, question 3. At the intersection of Ralph Talbot and Pine Street.
What is this, traffic? Is this coincidence, or did you put questions like this all together?
It's coincidental.
I should have had our traffic engineer be the guest host for this show.
I would think. I'm gonna learn a lot here.
And you should have sift through these and done school questions. Go ahead.
So Ralph Talbot and Pine Street, the traffic light signaling is insanely short. If anyone is taking a left from Pine Street, you always have to wait until the next light cycle since it's so short. Also, I've noticed that the walk signals at the lower Jackson Square intersection seem to have issues too. It seems like half the time I'm at those lights, the walk signal is lit and there are no pedestrians in the area. Could you please have these looked at and consider changing the timing? Thank you, Chris Howley.
So this question actually came in prior to our last show, and I was unable to answer this question. She's going to think that I never answer questions on this show now. And we did consult with our traffic engineer on this one and promised a follow-up in this show. So I don't always have all the answers, and this was a really good question. So we do have some information from Owen, traffic engineer. Ralph Talbot, Pine Street, and he says that's a MassDOT signal, believe it or not. So the
Explain
offset,
that more.
Huh?
MassDOT.
Department of Transportation. People generally know what that means. When I say DEP, does everyone know what that means? You know?
I do.
When I say DESI, do you know?
I don't think everybody
No.
knows that.
I went on the school committee and I'm like, what's DESI? Because it was always DOE in my day.
Correct. So
Right.
Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
But even
now
my
instead
time in the
of-
legislature,
Right,
it
it was DOE. It's
DOE.
I think that is still the actual website is DOE.
Right, and then DESI's within a
Yeah.
right, department of that. But the offset approaches on Pine Street due to the utility pole in the middle of the south leg restricts the potential for simultaneous northbound and southbound left turns. And as such, reduces the throughput on Pine Street below what would normally be expected for the amount of green signal time given. Due to complaints from Ledgebrook Road, Marymount Road neighborhood residents, an evaluation of this signal system is scheduled for some time in the next few weeks. It is possible that traffic pattern perturbations resulting from COVID restrictions caused a timing imbalance between Ralph Talbot Street and Pine Street, and a temporary timing change might be viable. Does that sound like it is written by a bureaucrat at DESI or a traffic engineer in Weymouth Town Hall?
Traffic engineer.
Okay.
Is
So,
think
some
there's a word
valid
in
points
there.
evidently emanated from the question, and it is being looked at probably by now, by the time we had received this question, so we'll have an update again. Lower Jackson Square. The signal equipment there is old, estimated to be 35 to 40 years old. A walk signal in the absence of push button activation constitutes a malfunction and will be checked.
Oh. It was a
Again,
good
from
question
the traffic
then.
engineer. So Chris Howley's on top of things and obviously raised valid points as confirmed by our traffic engineer. So we'll have updates in the next show as to what corrective actions were taken.
It's great. This is great business. Hi, Mayor, and it's Forest and Columbian intersection.
Are you kidding me?
Can the town consider putting a light at Columbian Street at the intersection with Forest? It would help tremendously with safety and slowing down traffic. There was a temporary light there last summer while Randolph Street was under construction.
Yeah.
This light was, again, very helpful. Is there any reason why we can't make this light permanent? Thanks, Gary McDougal.
So one man's, this is the word convenient or helpful. One man's helpful was another man's inconvenience. We actually got a lot of complaints on this lights, including one day when the former Braintree mayor called me irate about it, believe it or not, because of the backup. I assume he was on Columbian, I don't know. So we actually did some follow-up on this. It was evaluated by the town after that temporary light was put in as a measure because of a traffic rerouting that we had to undertake when we replaced the Great Pond Dam and culvert. There was some evaluation done by the state at that time, and it was determined that a light there was, whatever the rating and ranking system is, it didn't even dent the criteria for having a light put there. And the state would not approve, even if we sought that approval for a light there, was the short answer. I'm lacking the necessary highway engineer terminology words like perturbations and things like that. But
Yeah,
that's the layman's translation that I'm transmitting via the show to Mr. McDougall and our constituents. It was something that was looked into based on other suggestions that came in. But it was really a mixed bag when that thing was operating. We had probably more complaints from people than kudos from people when that light was there serving the purpose that it served at that time.
Interesting. All set?
Yeah.
Next question. When will town be open again?
So, Jeff, what's the estimated time before this is up and running? So today is what? What's the date today, folks?
25th of February,
25th
Thursday.
of February. 3 weeks from today. So today's the 25th. So say from, what would the 20th of February, 2 weeks from the 20th, put us at? March what?
So
March,
20th was a
something like
Saturday.
March 3rd, I think is the date we're fully non-remote, fully staffed, and fully 100% back to work. The answer to the question.
There's a little more, Mayor. It said, after a year of watching local meetings online, keeping our distance from town services, do you know when the town will be open for business? Sadly, the brand-new library has hardly been used due to capacity issues. The senior center has done a great job of reaching out to local seniors, but I look forward to getting back to my regular exercise classes.
Me
I
too.
agree. Do you have any idea of when you think we might be able to take advantage of all this town has to offer? Thank you, Ruth Ann.
So I know that all staff will be back. Now, in terms of specific activities, that's going to be a mixed bag, I'm sure, and there'll still be state guidelines on what kind of distancing and what kind of things are permissible or not. And for the regular exercise classes at the senior center, I mean, that might be something that could still be impacted in a couple of weeks. I don't know.
And of course, tonight we have a school committee meeting, and I know you've been doing a really good job, under the guidance, but we are also, as new guidance comes up, we are also looking to get kids back to more in-person learning and start to have activities for your children.
Right.
Not just sports. I know something came up about theater and opportunities for kids to be together again.
Right. I could do a follow-up as mayor and say, want to give an update on when we think we might have kids back in school.
Well, we have kids back in school.
No, I mean
now.
like
Full-time?
Full-time,
Yeah.
total normalcy,
Yeah.
that
I know.
kind
The
of
only
thing.
thing I can tell you that I think, every town is different. What you did, and I keep telling this to a number of people coming in and being new, you have a beautiful Chapman Middle School, state-of-the-art, opening up in September 2022, and you're on target, amazing. And it will be the place to be. But what you did with 900 kids before COVID was, 400 eighth graders are at the high school. That limits some space. We have another 500 dispersed, throughout the district with fifth graders. And I'm hopeful we can certainly get students back. We're going to do everything that we can, but we do, and we're going to be very transparent. We have parents on task forces with us, along with staffing. So I think we'll make progress. I can't say when everyone will be back as it was a year ago. So I'm hopeful, Mayor, very hopeful. So your next question is, Great Hill Park, dear Mayor. My name is Diane Purcell. My husband and I have lived in Weymouth 7.5 years and just welcomed a daughter in August.
Congratulations.
Right, great. There have been many improvements made to many parks around Weymouth since you took office, and we are grateful. However, we live on Bradley Road in North Weymouth, which is the entrance to Great Hill Park. Are there any plans to improve this park? It boasts such phenomenal views and has such great potential. Suggestions: improve signage, speed bumps, proper sidewalks on entire Bradley Road, barriers to keep cars off the grass, increase patrol and set hours to decrease misuse. Speeding vehicles is a major safety concern for our wonderful neighborhood. Thanks very much for your time and consideration, Diane Purcell.
So I guess I misheard part of the question. So she's wanting to know about improvements to Great Hill? Yeah. Nothing on the drawing board. I know that just prior to taking office, that was one of the parks that the previous administration put some effort into with the little observation platform, or whatever you want to call it, the little thingamajig, and some guardrail. nothing significant. And this is interesting because in our previous taping, we got a question about this, and it was suggested it could be a place for off-leash activity for dogs.
Oh, yeah.
But there's potential up there, clearly. It was a favorite spot of mine in high school, by the way, when I used to, little gray area in the rules, I think, about going off campus for lunch period.
Okay. While in high school we're talking?
High school, yeah.
Okay.
And I had E-period study hall, so it was a little longer, period, because lunch period, E-period, was a longer period to accommodate 3 lunch servings.
Yep.
So we took advantage of that when we had our license and would exit the Hingham High School parking lot and drive all the way to North Weymouth to support the Weymouth economy and go to a former establishment that's no longer on Route 3A known as Burger King.
Oh, yeah.
And especially in the spring, beautiful spring day, and we would get our Burger King to go and go up to Great Hill and have a nice crispy chicken sandwich and some French fries and a Coca-Cola. And
So you've done your homework.
and use the trash receptacle, and then go back to the neighboring town and go back to class. So we're very familiar with Great Hill, and our normal inquisitor is a regular visitor there for some reason. He talks about it all the time, right? He goes up there for solitude often. So there is potential. The evening use is a problem. Last summer, we closed the gates for a while. That was creating some problems. We requested that the police do more patrolling up there. We actually had the sector police officer on duty in the evenings parked up there for a good portion of the evening when he wasn't answering calls. So yeah, we're going to talk to Recreation and see what ideas they might have. There's nothing on the drawing board. We're actually finishing up other parks that hadn't been completed. I mentioned on the show before, we're going to do some work at Iron Hill Street. We're in the design phase for there, which is really the last, with the exception of the Durante property, which the MBTA still kind of controls over in East Weymouth. And we're waiting for them to clean up some contamination. Other than that, Iron Hill Street's the last piece in the Back River Trail. That's probably the first one you're going to see some work happening on. And Beals Park in North Weymouth, not far from here, is slated for some improvements. But we'll definitely, since we have basically tackled every park in town now, once we complete those two,
Great.
we'll give a look at Great Hill Park. And we would welcome ideas. And if we do anything up there, there'd certainly be a public input process for suggestions. We got a suggestion already about letting dogs run wild up there. I'm not sure that'll go over well for neighbors. We have a former neighbor up here that is nodding. You want to get that again? Get that again?
I disagree with free dogs running.
Yeah, I do too.
Well,
I like
look
dogs.
we enforce leash laws in this town pretty strictly. And we had people complaining as recently as yesterday because they received citations in Great Esker. So we get complaints when we don't enforce it. We get complaints when we do enforce it. So I just think, that could be one of the areas for discussion if we were going to do something. Not that I'm eager to do it.
Like a dog park? Like a restricted area?
I don't know. We get requests. Actually, the question we got in the last taping was probably the second question I got this week about people looking for places to run their dog off leash.
I'm looking forward to, again, I told you when I first came here, I love to walk, and I'm looking forward to even your Legion Field, which is so accessible. So I'm excited as the
We
better weather
recommend
comes
Osprey
in.
Overlook, Great Esker. Those would be two places. Pond Meadow Park, King Oak Hill Park.
I'm looking forward to.
You could walk from the administration building to King Oak Hill
That's-
Park, do a
I-
little loop and go back.
I would love to. That's what I'm going to figure out, Mayor, very soon. And I do want to say, as superintendent, I do not agree that you leave school to go to Burger King and go to parks, and I just want to make sure, right, for the record, everybody.
Just so you know, we weren't actually cutting a class. I know we were in a gray area, but it was basically study hall we were skipping. What are you supposed to do in study hall anyway? Study?
Well, I mean, you're supposed to get assignments caught up or take that opportunity. Now it's about collaboration.
There
Kids
was one
working
anecdote I'll
together.
tell you. We decided it was a beautiful spring day, and things are a lot looser back then in the late 70s than they are now. And it was a beautiful spring day. Myself, a gentleman who's now a very well-known attorney in New Hampshire, and a third guy who had a great academic career. Actually, the third guy finished 8th in his class at Hingham High, so he was no slouch on the academic side, but it was just too nice a day, and we decided to blow town. And we were going to go to one of the guys' houses and cook some lunch. Parents were away. We got about a block from the school, and we were hitchhiking. And who pulls over to pick us up? But our grade administrator. I said, "You guys need a lift?" He picked us up,
Right.
turned around, he brought us right back to school. He said, "Wait in my office."
Well, I'm early 70s, so you can imagine I'm that much older than you, and things were definitely very different, and I was fun, but I'm not sharing any of those stories.
Well, my grade administrator must have had poor memory, because my senior year, it was a really nice day, and I pulled the same stunt with 2 other guys and a guy who had already graduated. And then we decided we'd cruise around the high school a lot, be a tough guy in the older guy's convertible. And that same grade administrator stopped us in the driveway after about our 3rd pass. And he looked at the first guy, he said, "Be in my office tomorrow at 8 a.m. The second guy, be in my office at 8 a.m. Says to the driver, "If I see you on the property again, I'm having you arrested," because he had already graduated. And he looks at me and he goes, "My grade administrator," and he goes, "You, go back to where you came from, get off the property."
Oh.
So instead
Mayor.
of wrapping things up
Okay.
with an anecdote about watching a TV show, I think it's more appropriate that we finish with a trivia question on the 67 Red Sox.
Okay, now you have to know, I do not know what this question is.
Who
This
is the
not
only,
rehearsed.
this is a more broader baseball question, who's the only pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball to hit a home run in the World Series in a losing effort and get the loss?
Not Earl Wilson.
Is that a question or an answer?
Well, this isn't 67, so we said it's a more, why do I think that? A pitcher. There was a pitcher that was a good hitter. Why do I think? I'm going to say Earl Wilson.
No. Game 1, 67 World Series, Jose Santiago.
He hit a home run?
It accounted for the Red Sox only run, and he 2-1 loss.
Yeah.
2-1 loss. He got the decision, the loss.
Who'd he pitch against?
Well, game 1 would have been Bob Gibson.
Bob Gibson. Oh, Bob Gibson. St.
So
Louis
on that
Cardinals.
note, we will suggest that we end with a cut from the Impossible Dream album rather than Lost in Space. What do you think?
I think that's great, Mayor.
Do you want to start us off with the Then One August
Then
Night?
one August night, the kid in right lay sprawling in the dirt.
The fastball struck him square.
Is Tony badly hurt?
The doctors say he'll be okay, but won't be back this year. With Tony through, what will we do? Who will carry us from here?
Good, Mayor. I don't know that I could have said the ending. That was good. So who did carry us through?
We're going to play it. See you next time on Ask the Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
If you just turned your radio on, it's happened again. Yastrzemski's hit a 3-run homer, and it's now 6-2 Red Sox.